With INEC's insistence that COVID or no COVID, it must go ahead with the planned election in Edo State come September 19, political horse trading obviously has started. But I think that what would be most contentious is the conduct of the party primaries, particularly for the ruling party in Edo State. While the politicians in Abuja are already saying that what is best for the party under the circumstance is the direct primaries. Those here in Benin, led by the state governor, are saying that the Abuja people do not have the sole prerogative to determine what option is best for the party. They're routing for indirect primaries. In 2019, the party adopted different strategies to conduct primaries for the emergence of its candidates in the governorship election. You can call it direct primaries, indirect primaries, consensus candidates, and there's one that Dr. Tony, the erudite broadcaster, former DG NTA, added in his piece on Sunday, the one he calls the offshore primaries. I've never heard that before. He also said that it was the governor of Ogun State who introduced that into the political lexicon. Today on the program, we'll look at what the constitution of the party says in the conduct of primaries and how that will shape the much anticipated, expected APC primaries in Edo State for the 2020 governorship election. Welcome on board. I'm joined now by Dr. Don Pedro Obaseki, ace broadcaster, ace journalist, public affairs commentator, media consultant. Many thanks for joining us on the program.
Oh, thank you so much, Sonny. Happy morning.
We also have with us Barrister Felix Isera. Barrister Felix Isera is a very, very expressive, bombastic public affairs commentator. Anytime you bring him on a program like this, you can rest assured that he's one of those young men that actually have their young head on their old shoulders. Barrister Felix, many thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Okay, let me start with Dr. Don Pedro. What is the position of the APC constitution on the conduct of gubernatorial primaries? And what are the precedents that have been set in this regard so far?
It's a very simple thing. I think the conduct of the primaries is actually the penultimate function of the organ known as the National Working Committee of the party. In that provision, it's very clear. It said that the National Working Committee, which is the one led by Oshomole, shall conduct the primaries to the presidential, the gubernatorial, and the state and national assemblies. That is what it states. You know, but you also asked the second part of the question. I think that is a part that is actually tangential to the issue at hand. What are the precedents? What is the precedent? By Anambra's election, which is yet to hold, APC would have conducted, as a party known to law, 76 primaries and 72 primaries, 36 states times 2 elections. Those states own, which is just 2 away from Anambra, would actually be the 74th. And in all the 73 gubernatorial elections prior to now, the only time they've used direct primaries in practice was Lagos. All the 72 others using precedents is basically indirect primaries, even when there is a consensual approach to candidacy in all this. So, looking at both sides, the National Working Committee will advise the National Executive Committee, but the National Working Committee will handle the primaries while the National Working Committee takes responsibility for the procedures for primaries. That one is clear. There is no two-way to that. On the other hand, the local or the state, because there are 4 things involved in the primaries, members or executives, depending on which you want to use, will be supplied from the ward level to the local government level to the state level for onward transmission told the National Executive, the National Working Committee, who is a member or who is the executive of this party, of the party. That is how it works. So for now, based on that constitution, it is clear that the National Working Committee will conduct primaries.
Okay. Mr. Phillips, I read a piece that you wrote, and you are of the opinion that under the present circumstances, what is best for the APC, in your opinion, is direct primaries. And this is not different from what the national chairman of the party has espoused. If a precedent has been set, like Dr. Don Pedro has analyzed, what stops the party from adopting this precedent against the background that it has produced results for the party?
I think first I want to greet my big brother, Dr. Don Pedro Baseke. You know, I respect him because I respect people who are full of intellect. So I always acknowledge them anywhere I see them. I would say that I think this discussion it serves the purpose of academics. It's a meant academic for academic purposes so that people can learn. It doesn't change the position of the law and the position of the NWC in this circumstance. Okay. Article 13, subsection 4, paragraph 14 has said, which he affirmed, that the NWC shall decide the the mode of primary and approved by the NWC. That was what the Constitution says. It was in view of this provision of this Constitution that in 2018, the NWC recommended to NEC that they will advise that direct primary should be practiced. So NEC approved that, oh, going forward, states from the presidential to the House of Assembly, direct primary shall be used, but with a proviso. What is the proviso? That, however, states are allowed to decide the type of primary they want. They can decide it, and for them to decide that, there was also a condition that must be met for a state to decide whether to use direct
or indirect.
Okay. Number one, all the aspirants who are contesting, they must be a part of it to agree. They must be consulted. Number two, all the stakeholders must be consulted and carried along. And it must be a consensus agreement that we don't want direct, we want indirect.
Oh, we don't want indirect?
We don't want indirect.
We want direct, okay.
We want direct.
Okay.
The question an average Edo man, an average APC man in Edo State artist, we have 8 aspirants in Edo State right now that APC. One of them is saying, I want indirect. 8 of them are saying, I want direct. Are you not going to tell me that that does not represent the view of the majority of party members and stakeholders? So that's why I said that this discussion serves academic purpose. It doesn't change anything. You know, I was embarrassed when I watched on air that the Aslemo-Jesua-led faction, they have adopted the indirect. I laughed. You know why I laughed? I was embarrassed to realize that people who are lawyers, who understand procedure, who understand that even a mere regulation cannot override the provision of the Constitution. Wait and start doing a kangaroo endorsement of the one indirect. The question to ask is, if the Aslemo-Jesua-led faction do not have the power to set form for their own aspirants, they cannot set the regulation for the election for their own aspirant. They don't have the power in view of Article 13, subsection 4, paragraph 5 of the APC Constitution. If they cannot set up screening committee to screen their own aspirants, if they cannot conduct election for their own aspirants, if they cannot fix date for their own aspirants, if they cannot declare the winner for their own aspirants, if they cannot send the name to INEC for their own, what is the essence of that activity that is an exercise in futility? What I would call a wild goose chase. So I think I'm embarrassed by that.
All right.
I would say I'm a little more embarrassed by your analogy, not the position of the law. Thank God that many of us also have law degrees. This is a very simple issue. It's not a matter of personalizing and Aslemo-Jesua, whatever. When it comes to personalizations, there is no need to grandstand and shout.
It's an auspice.
No, just hold on. Let's take one at a time. Yeah.
You see, for the commonwealth of Edo people, the politicians and their underlings must understand that the commonwealth of the Edo people must be paramount at all times.
Okay.
If you look at the extenuating circumstances that has led to this, you ask yourself how Nigerian, how Edo is the leadership of the APC. I'm talking directly now of Adams Oshiomhole. You see, you cannot hate shit and yet eat the maggot from shit. Pardon me. I don't want to insult anybody. I'm just trying to be as plain as possible. The National Working Committee in Article 13.4 and broken down, the first line there is that they shall organize the primaries. You see, all the other explanations that he has done is actually trying to explain, interpret going forward.
Yeah.
It is not stated categorically that it shall state regulations. But the procedural
provisions
are there.
Okay.
It gives it almost close to an omnibus, how will I put it, function.
Okay.
So, but the practice, like he said, regulation, is the state shall agree or decide what they will,
what best suits them.
them. You get my point? So any other thing is like reverse osmosis. But that is, by the way, what the main things that I'm looking at is one. They said they will do direct primaries. The positions of the Constitution is human. Constitutions are for human beings. Human beings are not for the Constitution. Number two, it says there is direct, there is indirect, there are consensus, or whatever the thing is. But you cannot do that outside of the environment. Everything in law is in situ. You cannot take away the prevalent environment. Nigeria is in something close to a war. So we are told. There is a global, whether the World Health Organization, the NCDC, says that at no point in time will there be 20 or 50, depending on the mechanics, where people will gather. Don't forget, this is just 4 weeks away. Yeah. Just 3 weeks ago, the total COVID-19 figures in Nigeria was 1,950. Today is dovetailing into 8,000, if it's not even going past that now. And that is across Nigeria. It is not something that is peculiar to Edo State. So for a party to announce, don't forget, we are not told yet that there was a real meeting of the National Working Committee. There is no gazetted meeting so far. It is just what was published and yet still to be verified, still to be published position of, I was on Punch newspaper, okay, that we are all shouting hula over. Yeah. But that's why I'm assuming that the National Working Committee was just testing waters, all their underlings and their public thermometer gauges. I just put that out to test the barometer of what the public opinion will be. The National Working Committee, if they did do that, have shown gross irresponsibility, lack of knowledge, lack of pathos for the average Nigerian. You are not allowing people go to the marketplace. You are not allowing people sit 5, 7, 8 in a bus. You are not allowing 20 people gather in one particular place at one time or the other. You are not allowing 50 people take part in an activity at one time or the other. You have banned burial ceremonies. You can no longer hold church ceremonies. And you are saying all the 178,000 supposed cardholders of APC in 192 words should carry out an election that is almost as a general election. Wait up and smell the coffee. Something ain't right. I know that there is a fight going on, and I pray by the grace of God, the Edo people come out better at the end of all this. But in getting there, the Adams Oshiomhole faction, or the Adams Oshiomhole-led NWC, whatever the factions there are, therein, must not do that at the expense of the patrimony of the average Edo man. So you're saying that is that it is inappropriate. The gains of indirect primaries far outweighs direct primaries. So let me explain. Yeah. You see, I've been here before. Okay. I was a participant once upon a time when the elections of 2016 were about to take place. It was clear. We even went to the extent of not even using the entire executive. The executive of the APC at the world level is 26, 27 officers. Then you have what they call principal officers. Those principal officers are there is chairman, secretary, and not their assistants. Yeah. There are 13. So when you have 13 persons, that is with the people that took part in the last election in Edo State. Okay. As an aggregate, there are less than 3,000 across the state. And when you divide that by 192 wards, you are getting close to 13, 14 persons per ward, even when you have other persons who are elected officials across the state. That makes a whole lot of sense now. And it meets the demands of the World Health Organization. It meets that of the National Center for Disease Control. Adams Oshiomhole and Co. cannot legislate away the fact that Nigeria is in a pandemic, is a state, is a present and current danger, and that must be taken into consideration. Okay. All right,
let me pause you there, and I just want to advise that I would trust me to play down on names on the program, because those people, they're not here to respond to some of the statements that we're making. Now, what are your thoughts and perspectives on what do you think are the gains of conducting direct primaries for Edo State? President Felix.
I think first, my big brother here, he has not disputed the fact that this is not what the law. So he has agreed that it is the NWC with the power of the NEC that has the power. So the law is not disputable right now. But the issue is the law is not disputable. There is no place in the law. Please, I'm still talking. There is no place in the law that says that the state work committee will conduct primary. There's no place in the law. He said the NWC with the power of the NEC, which they have done. Okay. So that's a settled matter. You know, reality becomes elusive if illusions are the basis of our thoughts and actions. You know, when sentiment is now being brought into a thing that borders on law, it becomes a challenge. I do not expect anybody at all trying to take advantage of a pandemic to gain political advantage over the opponent. I do not expect it. Edo people are crying, Nigerians are crying, we want to get out of this pandemic, but unfortunately, people are now increasing the figure because they want to blackmail the opponent that, so we don't want this thing.
So are you saying the NCDC is increasing the figures?
Excuse me.
I just asked a question. Are you saying that NCDC is increasing the figures?
Yes. For the past 2 months.
Yes.
In Edo State, we have been recording the case of 1 person a day, 2 persons a day. Oh my God! 2 days ago, we started recording 28 persons a day, 30 something a day, which has never happened. So it's unfortunate that this time we are not, the numbers are not increasing because APC primary is now closed. It sends message to an average person that what is happening. So it is unfair that for anybody to attempt to take advantage on a pandemic to gain political favor is a sin in the sight of God. Is an offense in the part of the law, and is an insult to the sensibility of an average Edo person. I will say that it is more dangerous to conduct an indirect primary than a direct primary. And I'll present my argument. In an indirect primary, you need nothing less than 4,000 delegates to gather in one place to elect. That 4,000, you still need observers, you know, lectures and monitors and what have you. So at the end, you may have 5,000 persons in one place. It becomes dangerous. If one person has the pandemic in that place, it means that out of that 5 persons, there is probability of infecting not less than 100. That 100 goes back to their different communities and they distribute it. Okay. It becomes dangerous. Meanwhile, we have wards and communities in Edo State up to about 97% that have not recorded this. So when you now bring people together in one venue to conduct a primary with such a large number, it means that you are indirectly looking for a way to redistribute it along the
So Mr. Felix, let me just put this question to you. If you're conducting the direct primaries as against the indirect primaries, which will pull more crowds together?
Today, this morning, I was coming through New Benin. Yes. New Benin market. We have nothing less than 1,000 market women there selling. I go to market every day to buy things. Market women are selling in schools with social distancing. The question to ask is, if market women can be selling in schools with thousands of them, hundreds of them selling with proper social distancing, are you saying that party primary can also be conducted in such manner? Alternatively, we can say that if we say let us conduct this thing from wards, we can have up to 1,000 party members, then it can be decentralized to the unit level where you have just 200%, 300%. So you now realize that it is safer to conduct a direct primary where you are able to decentralize and depopulate the people. But in an indirect primary, you cannot do that. Everybody will have to come together in one place. You know, they make an argument that stadium can be used. According to the World Health Regulation right now, stadium in the world are not allowed to convert anybody. That is why, if you see the football they are playing recently, you don't see spectators there. All you see now, people are playing because stadium is an avenue to send this pandemic out. So the argument that indirect is better is not plausible, because it is very clear that with the indirect it is easy for you to spread this pandemic than the direct.
Yes.
We don't turn fallacy into truth. You see, the young man is making some very salient points, but unfortunately he's doing it on fallacy. Let me explain. The fact that indirect primaries in the last couple of elections were held at the stadium does not mean that indirect primaries must hold in a stadium.
Where is the last word that we can use?
So if you are using that word,
just hold on.
If you are using that argument of precedence, I wonder why you are not seeing the argument of precedence that has taken place in 72 of the last 73 primary elections conducted by the APC. Let me say this quickly and without meaning to banter all this or whatever. The mode of carrying out the primaries, the modus, whether they will gather in one place, whether they will do it at their ward level as we do when we are nominating or electing officials across all levels, there is absolutely nothing that says that Pedro Saro Agboifo Obaseki of Ward 7, New Benin, Oredo local government area, cannot stand in front of our secretariat and just the 13 of us vote in an indirect primary. Now, that is clean, neat, and takes away all these brubra, and exoteric arguments. If you have them there, even if you have officials to monitor, which will just be one, police or whatever, we will not hit 20. There are 13 principal officers. In the last election that happened, Mr. Godwin Obaseki and the remaining 8 of them, the total was 2,558 members across the state. The only difference is maybe for the sake of collating, for the sake of logistics, everything takes place at that point. Now, in a direct primary, they will not gather at the stadium. So if they will not gather at the stadium, why should they not gather at the stadium for indirect? If it can take place across the length and breadth of Edo State, in their separate localities and wards, discountenance the use of precedents that they gather in the stadium, 13 persons per ward, meet all the regulations of the World Health Organization, all the regulations of the National Center for Disease Control, and all the precedences. Close to 90.5% of the precedences of electing members or electing gubernatorial aspirants and candidates in the APC. It's the people who are playing politics and jabberwockery, the ones who are bent on decimating the people of Edo State because of their cocooned narrative. I don't want to insult anybody. It's just playing out. Why don't the National Working Committee, if of course they did hold, which of course for now is only based on what we have in a Punch newspaper, still on gazetted, still on written on the front pages of any letter-headed party, whatever of the party, the fact is to show that there was so much insincerity. There are two things that they said happened that day. That they fixed direct primaries and they gave a waiver to an aspirant. It is like putting the cart before the horse. When I collected those same forms in May 2016, on the last page of that form is the proviso that states the mode in case you need a waiver. So why are you giving a waiver when there is no whistle blown? It is all, where the real politics is there. Number two, you are talking about those states moving from 10, 9, 10, 11 to 23 or whatever numbers a day.
Yeah.
Why are you taking that without taking into consideration what is happening in the larger Nigerian polity? When Odedo was recording 9, 10 a day, Kanu was recording 0, 0, 0 a day. Kanu started jumping from From the first one was 120, 78, 155. If you still look at it, even as of yesterday, Edo State was still down the ladder in number 9 in the amount of cases that were reported yesterday. Okay. When coronavirus came on the 30th of March, when the president shut down this country, Edo was number 3, just one figure below Ogun State. So let's not tell ourselves with increased so that we don't feed people with grand falsehood. It's just simple, arithmetical.
All right, let me pause it there and bring
door-to-door testing, of which you, ITV, you are screaming at your gate. When I got there today, I knew that my temperature was 26.3, and I had to ask the man at the gate, when is it terrible? It's after 38. Yeah. So there is let's not play that let's not play to the gallery. It is good that the National Working Committee of the party, if they have the upward mobility and sensibility, and they believe that the Edo man matter, they should please.
All right, let me get a call. Let me take this contribution now from Right Honorable Elizabeth Ativier, former Speaker, Edo State House of Assembly. Many thanks for joining us on the program. Please go ahead. What are your thoughts?
Thank you so much. I just want to tell that guy there that Edo State politicians, APC, cannot allow, we will not allow people by local government to, by ward or whatever, to determine who should be our governor in the next election. That is practically not possible. That is not a true representation of the people. Direct primary is just the best. And let me inform you there that there is only very few units have up to 500 members that are going to vote. Very few. The highest, the majority is about 200, 100 and something, 200 and something in the units. So whether we vote at the unit level or at the local government level, that is just the best.
Okay.
Or at the ward level, either unit level or the ward level. That is the best. And that's the only way we can get correct person to be our governor. So the idea of 13 people per ward or per local government is not tenable, cannot represent the true mind of the people. And after all, if you have worked so hard, why are you afraid of direct primary? Why are you afraid? And indirect primary, there's a lot of corruption in indirect primary. You saw what happened. A lot of corruption in indirect primary. But direct, you can hardly bribe people. How many people can you bribe?
All right, thank you. Let me pause you there.
At the mind of the larger population of APC men.
All right, we've got former Majority Leader, the State House of Assembly, Honorable Osai Yoha, joining us now. Please go ahead, Osai Yoha. What are your perspectives?
My brother, good morning. And it's a pity that some people to start spreading falsehoods, and then they don't think about the health and the welfare of the other person. It's a very sad commentary. The last scholar has totally spoken out of probably ignorance, because the truth is, at each unit as we speak, for example, let me go to Unit 5 in Oredo and Unit 4 in Oredo. We have close to 1,000 APC members. So, I mean, when do you want to gather these people? Is everything about politics? What about the health of the people? So when people start coming and start spreading because of sour grapes or whatever issues that they have, it's very, very sad. So the truth remains that this direct primaries that the National Working Committee is trying to force on Edo people is actually meant to just, because you cannot control the crowd. That's this way. So what they want to do is bring this kind of situation that becomes rancorous and all that, and then the National Working Committee will have the opportunity to declare whatever figures they like. There is no other motive behind this. The only motive is to kill Edo people, and then when you realize that it's no longer controllable, then the man appears is at the top. We announce the results the way he has been doing. So it's a sad commentary, and we must let them know that this is a country of laws. It doesn't belong to one or two individuals, and this state doesn't belong to somebody.
All right.
The state belongs to us.
I don't want us to go on the part of names calling, because those names are not here physically to respond. Yeah. Let's just stay on the issues like we've been doing. Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's very, very clear that as we speak, we are trying to manage the pandemic. Even the countries that have the sources to the health enablement and everything, they are still not able to contain this virus. And then somebody sits down somewhere to say that everybody could come together in the market and come and do an election. So the elections and the politics matters more than the people in the state. It's a sad rhetoric, and it will not happen. I'm very, very sure of that. We are a country of laws.
All right. Thank you, Osagbo, you have for your contributions. Yeah. Let me. No, I'll call you. I'll bring you in. But is this not? Your phone has no data connection, so I can't help you with that at the moment. As far as this whole issue is concerned, against some of the reasons advanced on what is best suitable for Edo people at this point in time, Barrister Felix is saying.
I think, let me quickly correct an impression when we talk about precedent that in other states they have been using the indirect. That is not doing that. Adamawa, it was direct. Okay. In other states, in fact, the presidential election, as large as it was done through direct. In Rivers State, they had two factions there, some did direct, some did indirect. So if you look at the advantage... In presidential election, there was no candidate. There was no other aspirant. So at least they conducted an election to affirm his candidacy. Yes, that was a one-way traffic thing. It was a one-way traffic. Yes. And then there was no pandemic too. The question is, what are the advantages of direct? What are the advantages of... If you look at the advantage of direct, it outweighs that of the indirect. Number one, it helps to promote democracy. I have been an advocate of democracy, and I keep saying that for us to have a sustainable democracy in Nigeria, we must be able to get the internal democracy of parties right. If you allow party members to decide who becomes their flag bearer, it helps to build popular participation. It helps to have majority supporting and affirming a candidacy of an aspirant. It means that the person that carries the flag has the confidence of party members. In a situation where you have about 8% of party members deciding the fate of party members is undemocratic. Direct primary helps to reduce costs, especially this critical time of our economy. Direct primary, in the last election, delegates were paid 150, 200. We have a dose right now. We have a governor who said, I don't want to waste money. I don't want to share money to party leaders. I want to ensure that, there's prudent spending. You know, we just need to stay on course, stay on the issues. I'm making reference. Yes. So if a governor who is so passionate about working, who doesn't want to share money, is now advocating for indirect, where he knows that I have to start using taxpayers' money to pay delegates, it becomes a problem. But in the case of the direct, you don't need to pay party members to get their vote. In the case of in Edo State, for example, now, it's very peculiar. Why is it peculiar? Whether we like it or not, the reality is that we have two factions of APC. In the case of indirect, we are going to have two factional elections. This executive will, that is the case of Zamfara today, the case of Rivers, where each of them were conducting, this one will conduct direct, this one will conduct indirect, because you allow them to decide what they want. But if you go with the workings of the NWC, the direct, you are not going to have factional election. It's just going to be conducted by one independent body at the national level. So the argument of indirect, this and this, it's not plausible. It's not logical. And after the Edo man wants a party that will be able to bring a popular candidate, anybody who feels that is popular should go and check his popularity, testing it with the party members. If a candidate like Mr. Governor has worked, like he said he has worked, he believes that, my party people are going to vote for me, he has no reason to be afraid of direct primary. I keep saying this, that anybody who is popular, any politician who is popular, that contesting an election, nobody can rig that election. So the argument that, in the case of direct election, they are going to rig is not true. As a city governor who has worked very well, your party members will mobilize and so is this policy taking too far? Is that what it's playing out?
From a TVA's contribution, it shows skewed politics taking
it means you're in total agreement with your house contribution.
No, not really. No.
That's what I mean, because you specifically mentioned Activate.
You know why I mentioned Activate?
Yes.
Activate was addressing what I said. I heard her.
Okay.
But it's a pity that there's a Ghanaian bird called Chichidodo. The Ghanaian bird that hates shit. Is the
no, you keep using that foul language. You know why? You are supposed to be a professional.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
there was no other way to describe it.
There's always a way. There's always a way.
There's always a way.
Now, just a moment. Let me take this call. Let me take this call. I'll bring you in a moment. I've got Senator Higi Uzame joining us on the program. Distinguished Senator, please go ahead. What are your thoughts and your perspectives on some of the issues that have been raised in the last couple of minutes? Hello, good morning.
Good morning, good morning.
Yes, please go ahead.
Well, good morning, Tony. I'm so surprised at which. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You are live on the program. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm so surprised that those who are advocating for direct primaries. I'm so surprised that those who are advocating for direct primaries. It's so sad that we have not been able to find out what is the actual problem between the two. Between the Somole and the Golden Opaseki. Somole came up to power by indirect primaries. Somole came to power through elections in the indirect primaries. The election which he conducted along with Golden Opaseki was indirect primaries. Why now has he decided? Why has he decided? So the problem we have is that we have to understand, they have to tell us their differences. They have problems. That's the truth. They are nothing to do with law or no law. They should tell us what is their problem. I stand by indirect primaries. Because you cannot, because of your hatred for one man, to kill more than 50% of the population of this state. And let us be mindful of Operation Wait here. Let us be mindful of anarchy. If you are granting, waiver to an aspirant, at which process did you follow? Is it Moses that is being recognized now, or is it aspirant that is being recognized? So we must tell ourselves the truth. The only way out we can find peace in this process is indirect primaries. Anything short of that.
Okay, distinguished Senator Higi Uzame, we'll pause you there so we can have more contributions on the program, particularly with our panelists here in the studio. Thank you so much. Okay, so you were just on the verge of, I had to take the call. Yeah,
yes, I understand. Yeah. You see, Mr. TV,
I think you should stick to the.
Yes, I said that before. I wanted to stick to the issues.
When you criticize the process that brought you to be twice, it's a little funny, but it's okay. Okay, I understand. Okay, I am not running. I'm not on the ballot. Yes. Number two, I want to quickly address this issue of democracy, popular participation. Every ward executive, why there has been indirect primaries prior to now, it presupposes that they were elected by the General Assembly of the ward. They call it the Ward Congress. Yeah. It is like me now, Pedro, or like Felix now, saying that because of the fact that we've elected National Assembly legislators or House of Assembly, whatever, all of us, to show democracy, must do a voice vote, an hallelujah vote in every issue. That is not even the point. Let me just be very careful. You see, the fact that Mr. Godwin Obaseki, like you said, is clamoring for indirect primaries is not a matter of popularity, it's a matter of common sense. Okay. The entire world, the global community, cannot be going in one peculiar advised direction, and then our national party working committee, supposedly, because this is yet to be official, takes us in the exact diametrically diametric opposite. Mentioning that there was one or two double primary instances, it also brings to bear the comport of this very national working committee. All these things we've heard about double primaries taking place. Zamfara, Adama was screaming, the First Lady writing a 6-page tweet on the incompatibility or the inability of our national chairman to dispense open primaries. All rivers being cancelled, losing. Must Oshomole, I'm sorry, as national chairman of the party, seem to pretend over almost always contentious elections.
Okay, so I'm sure he will answer that question, but let me get another contribution, this time from a journalist, a veteran journalist, Orobosa Omojo, former two-time commissioner in the state. Please go ahead, you're live on the program now, this morning on ITV.
Good morning, Sonny Duke.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Pedro Basaki. Good morning, Felix Siri. Mine will just be at the level of taking an overview and advocating for peace in us moving this state forward. I think I'm very qualified, being one of the very few left of the foundation members for the new rethink, for the new rebirth for the state. We started a new dream of a movement that we thought would be able to refocus the vehicle of the state from 2003 to 2006, from ACD to 2006, then AC and all that. And today we are APC. It is sad that at this point we are in the history of democracy in Edo State, we are still bothered about eternal democracy that is midwifed by the same agents of change that came in years ago. It's very sad. Ordinarily, the two options are very good. They can produce a popular candidate for any party in an environment that is devoid of sentiment, that is devoid of all manner of undercut practices. I have gone through the two processes. In 2011, I contested for the House of Reps through the auctioning for them. It's very simple. Queue up behind your poster. People queue up behind your poster. You are not there. I will put it on record. You can search your Google when you drop. I lost an agent in Udo while the old man with 3 children, they were on the queue. My line was so long, and the bus stopped, and they pumped gun into them. Others fell. We lost people in Ora Ward. The Catholic woman leadership in a donut. If you remember, she was killed on that day while standing on the queue. What happened? Candidates still emerged in that process, not minding people that died. Must we spill our blood because we want to lead people? That is on that. I am of the school of thought that if the pillars, if the parameters for electionary process are in place, the option therefore what they call the direct primaries now is as good as the indirect in terms of cost. But having the kind of social political situation we find ourselves in this country and digital Edo State, where we cannot guarantee security of life in our homes, then we need to first of all look at the pillars. Ask INEC, ask police if they can guarantee the life and the sanctity of us. And if INEC can guarantee the sanctity of the ballot that will be dropped on that day, so that they can return back to the collection center, I am good to go. In my word, I am good to go. But it becomes very difficult where people are celebrating the process because of the perceived advantage they think they have. On both sides, there can be skill. You can put a ballot at the stadium, ballot boxes at the stadium, the election can still be rigged. But what I'm advocating, if we must move forward the years after, is that let us as journalists begin to set up the agenda, the discourse of the agenda on how we have to put. We know the people that will make elections to be free and fair, not even the parties. I've gone through direct, I've gone through indirect. In 2015, I was shot at in Guber because they wanted to steal the ballot box. And I protested it. I was shot at.
you're saying that on both sides, these modes of conduct of the primaries will be okay if the fundamentals are put in place. That's the point you're making.
If the fundamentals, if the police can guarantee protection, if INEC can guarantee that the result that will be returned from each of the wards, the 192 wards, is what they will collect. For instance, in my ward, in Obiano, if the result that is posted can be returned to Okada to be collected, if the result will be returned from it can be returned in the way it was voted with the signature of the agency. Go to go.
All right, let me pause you then, so we can give more opportunities to others who want. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, gentlemen, on both sides of the divide, the ideas behind the strategy of conducting primaries, whether direct or indirect, is okay. But what is usually the problem is that the gladiators will always not allow the system to run itself to logical conclusion in such a way and manner that the person who actually won emerges. We have influences here and there, and that seems to be the crux of the matter. In all of this, how do we factor in the people? These actions, these decisions, this semi-controversy that is brewing up, is it really for the interest of the people? Vice Felix said.
I think those who are agitating for indirect are doing that out of phobia, very sheer phobia. You know, I've listened to arguments, very skewed arguments on social media based on ignorance, not position of law and fact. Let me ask my big brother a very good question here. If you are saying that the direct primary is not feasible because of the pandemic, are you now also telling us that INEC general election is not going to be conducted through indirect? Are you saying because it is the estimate? I'm talking, please. I'm talking. When I'm done, when it's your turn, you can respond to my question.
Okay, all right, thank you.
The estimation of World Health Organization has stated that September 19, there's no possibility of this pandemic will be over. The estimation is that this pandemic will end in 2022. So if this pandemic is not going to end before September 19, are you saying that INEC cannot conduct election? Is that what we are saying?
No, we adapt the election to the
question I ask is, you know, when I say that the commentators seem to be ignorant, you know what? When you talk about indirect, it's like a type of a democracy where you elect people to go and vote on your behalf. They lack knowledge of APC's constitution. That's why they keep saying that, oh, they have delegates. Do you know that for you to conduct an indirect primary, each of the ward needs to elect 3 representative delegates that will now represent them in the primary election.
Okay.
The question is, if APC is going to conduct an indirect primary today, it means that there is still going to be a quasi-mini election in every ward to elect 3 persons.
Okay.
It means that it is more dangerous to have 2 ceremonies before the general election. It's not dangerous to have that. So another question you need to also ask is, right now in Edo State, we have the 2 factions. We have Lawrence Oka, who is the state secretary, but we have another person acting as is the secretary. Are you saying that if you want to conduct an indirect primary, the 2 executives right now will be conducting their own? Okay. Because this goes to the local government and to the world.
Yeah, let me
the only way to avoid it is to have a direct primary where no executive will function.
Let me get the thoughts and the perspectives of Charity Amayao, just joining us now, a former contestant candidate of the All Progressive Congress in the House of Representatives, APC. Charity, thank you for joining us on TMI. What are your thoughts?
Good morning,
Good morning.
Well, my brother, you can see when you try to send facts, very difficult. I used to see my senior brother, Obaseki, talking so eloquently in the program, but today he seems to be struggling to pass on facts to us. And you can see, let me tell you what's on the truth. If a candidate, if an aspirant is popular, commit yourself to direct primary, like a referendum. Let every member of the party give you the go ahead to state general election. This whole idea of coronavirus, if you leave your station now and go to this primary school, and you will see over 1,000 market men and market women in that market on a daily basis. How many have died in the local of coronavirus? That an election you are going to do for one day will now make a due to be unsafe. I heard the national chairman at Nemochudu was saying that there was no valid voters register. They run the route from that now because I would have said my brother Sandomo, how come they didn't realize that they have 1,000 people in the unit? You see, when you throw away different farms, he only said, Nemochudu only said that they are going to convert in a 15,000 capacity room stadium. Thank God that my brother Dr. denied that if I don't see the stadium again. You can see they are jumping away from one issue to the other because they cannot defend it. The National Working Committee has decided for direct primaries. Just like my family have said, if they cannot send one to themselves, if they cannot create assurance to themselves, and they cannot conduct elections to themselves, and those people will have direct primaries, and every card carrying member of APC will decide who will carry the ticket of APC in the coming election. And that's just the basic part. The earlier they are faced with that fact, there is going to be wearing of back. The NCDC has said they have what protocols very can.
All right, Charity, I need to pause you there so that I can take just another call. I need to pause you here. Thank you.
Good morning.
Yes, Sonny Gedosa is joining us live from Epodo. Sonny, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. If I tell you, I wish you can. If you won't use your system to check me now, I'm sure I'll be more than 37, 38.
And that will mean that you probably have some symptoms of COVID-19.
I'm asking Grace to help me to comport myself.
Okay.
I've often said that do not feel sorry for politicians. When they are getting it, is connection, is grace. When it doesn't get to them, there is corruption. With that kind of mindset, it will be difficult to have the Nigeria of our dream. Unfortunately, the reason why I'm feeling very sad is because of Dr. Pedro. It's not because we are not towing the same line this morning. It's the fact that when a man who is vibrant, who is very intelligent, who I have listened to very importantly, I am feeling very bad that we are looking at it from the part that concerns us. If you listen to everybody that I've called, I can tell you I've been following this for a very long time. It's just that it's difficult for me to join the process. Because if you're not careful, you either break you or you cope with it. So for you to be successful in the political arena in Nigeria and Edo State, you need to make a choice, whether to be part of them or to be at the back and continue to watch from the sideline. That's the challenge I'm having. If you look at it, the Edo State political arena today is divided into two parts. The one that is supporting the governor of the administration and the one that is loyal to Mr. Chairman of the National Party. And when we continue, like my father taught me something. He said, if on a time of election and you discover a man that is better than me, don't because I am your father, you follow me. That is a sin before God. Learn to tread on the path of truth. That's what my father told me. My father died February this year. He has not changed that mindset.
So what is the part of truth in this conversation as far as you're concerned?
The part of truth in this conversation, I said to you maybe before, fairly separate of it. If you check, South Korea did the presidential election this year. And if you look at January and May 20, some presidential elections have been carried out in African countries. And I was in New Benin yesterday. You cannot find a place to park. I had to even go back because I couldn't buy what I was going to buy.
Okay.
What we need to do, if market can take care of themselves, how come that election cannot be taken care of by those who are going to observe and those who are going to be conducting it? My last point is that let us come against this issue of because I'm against Obamaki, I'm not supporting, or because someone else is my enemy, I'm not supporting. We're not able to do the election, and at the end of the day, we're not going to get the best for our people. So let's take away our emotion and our anger and everything. Let's look at what is the best process for this election.
All right, thank you very much, Sonny Igadusa, joining us live from Airport Road, State TMI. Now, I'm a little bit concerned about something, which is the fact that all of a sudden, the impact of the numbers coming from NCDC as far as the COVID-19 pandemic is concerned doesn't seem to matter anymore. because it's time for politics. Are we saying that right now we shouldn't factor that into whatever plans and preparations that we're having towards the conduct of the 2020 Edo State governorship election, beginning with the primaries and then going forward to the election proper? Are we saying that COVID-19 shouldn't be a factor? Is that what we're saying?
I guess that's what they are saying. Is it, let me, you know, I asked me a question, and I think that your question also, the World Health Organization had made projections. Just 2 months ago, there was hardly COVID-19 in Nigeria. Nigeria shut its airspace on the 22nd of March. Now today is the 25th of May, 2 months and 3 days later. It is difficult to now start planning for the modus of an election that will take place in September. So let's not get it twisted. I listened to Mr. Wale Uzi, the Commissioner for Voter Education of INEC, speaking 2 days ago on television, and I understand that there is a plan for them to carry that out, but not the way they are thinking. On the other hand, you just asked now, are we not factoring into it the jumping figures, which is not peculiar to Edo State? Are we not factoring into it the fact that all of a sudden in 3 or 4 weeks, the national figure has jumped by close to 400%? Which means if we take that into consideration, and the argument of my brilliant young man here, it means that in another 5 or 4 weeks when this election will take place, there may be a 4,000% rise based on the computer modeling of the increase that is taking place right now. For anybody in today not to factor in the global pandemic, which everybody is witnessing, which has caused the shutdown of major economies across the world, including Nigeria, which your money showed this morning when you started, you first of all ran, should the economy reopen? Because it has become a tangential pillar in moving this nation forward. I actually told people before that the COVID-19 is a reset button for Nigeria, restructuring from all angles. So if that, as it is on the table, and we have a national leadership of our party not taking that into consideration and allowing the seeming factional politicking to now take the best position of their thinking intellect, then one will sit back and say, hello, what's going on? Me as a person, you see, when I hear it's all funny.
Okay.
You know, okay. And I pray to God that the good Lord touches their heart and take into consideration.
Whose heart now?
The heart of those who are making decisions for us.
Okay.
And I keep saying, all this one we are talking about is a hoopla based on an unofficial, yet to be gazetted release that
from the National Working Committee. All right, let me get by Phyllis in here. Let me get by Phyllis in here. Now, can you react to that? This source of this semi-controversy on which mode of primary should be adopted is also playing out in Ondo State. Those who are against the Ondo State governor are also routing for direct primaries. Is this an official position of the National Working Committee, or just testing the water kind of?
If it was a case of testing the water, yes. I don't think that the other faction would have responded to it the next day or been agitated with it. I don't think so. I don't think people would have been paranoid. I'm still talking. What I would have expected. Just hold on. Pedro, just hold on. I am surprised that for the past 1 hour, Dr. Pedro Obaseki has been responding to something he alleged is not yet official. And I make he's responding to something. I am surprised that Edo State governor and others are responding to something. What I would have expected from them is to say that we are not yet aware and feign ignorance of any information, waiting a final publication of it. So, haven't responded to it, yes. Haven't been paranoid over it. There's no need for you to come and start telling us that, oh, it is not yet official. But that aside, you know, we have argued in this place, and it is very clear that the advantage of direct is more than indirect. Indirect, You need to first conduct a mini primary.
That is not true.
Listen,
that is a fallacy.
No.
Please,
I think
Dr. Don Pedro, can you just become a little bit? Just become a little bit.
In 2016, in my ward, Guber, I was elected as a delegate. They didn't elect me inside my room. They went to a primary school to affirm or 3 or 4 send us to that as a delegate.
That is a national convention. You are changing.
Just hold on.
I was a delegate from my ward, elected. I was not an executive of the ward.
Okay.
So that is not an argument. So people are saying that they need to gather. It is not true. You need to first conduct an election in every ward to send 3 persons before you even have a delegate. I have argued that in a direct primary, you have less persons gathering. Okay. But in indirect, you have so many persons gathering. And that alone, what I would have expected Mr. Governor to have done at this time, in view of the fact that he's so passionate about those states, he doesn't want this thing to spread. He to say, okay, right now, in this indirect, you must maintain social distancing. You must use nose masks. Okay, every unit, this unit will vote this hour, this unit will vote to reduce the population. That's what I would have expected from him. I passed through New Benin this morning. The market women there are more than 1,000. I go to market every day, go and look at crowd market. In fact, just last week here, the first lady of Edo State, Mr. Bexy Opaseki, conducted a seminar wherein about 400 officials, female officials attended. If a governor's wife can have such a meeting of more than 400 persons in one place, are you telling me that in every unit you cannot conduct a direct primary that is less than 300 persons? So it is clear that those governors who are against direct primary are governors who are not popular. They know that because they are not popular, they have contributed immensely to the embarrassment of their party in their state. They have abused, they have insulted, they have relegated party members. On the day of direct primary, these guys will express their dissatisfaction at the modus of running the party by the governor. So in the case of Edo and Delta, they are similar because those governors, they have contributed so much to anti-party activities in their various states. They are scared that in direct primary, party members will embarrass them. Okay. That is why they believe that with state money that they have, they can easily buy delegates and they have their way.
Right, I'll bring Dr. Don Pedro on to respond to the comment that he made that if you are afraid of direct primary, it's a testament of the fact that you are unpopular. Is that the situation in Edo State? I'll find out from you. But let me get another contribution from Matthew Idoikeme, just joining us on the program. Hello, Matthew. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on TMI.
Yes, Olito, good morning.
Yeah, so tell us, what are your perspectives on this debate about direct or indirect primaries for Edo APC gubernatorial primaries?
Well, first and foremost, I want to start by saying that for anybody to think that direct primaries should be used for the governorship primaries in Edo State, I think the people are just like looking for trouble. And you ask me why. Since I joined the APC, I conducted the primaries in Kaduna State. I was the chairman of the panel that went to Kaduna State to conduct primaries. And the primaries was indirect. And at that time, let's leave the issue of the pandemic that we are faced with now on the other side. If you go to the APC constitution make it clear that the register of the party ought to be updated every 6 months. And after the update, that register should be transmitted to the local government, then to the state, then to the national. I've been in this APC since 2018. And as far as I know, I can't remember the last time that there has been an update of the register. Therefore, I don't even think that there is a register that you can use today to say you want to do direct primaries. How do you even determine people that are just the card carrying members of the party? That one is on one side. Then, on the issue of indirect, the people who are going to vote in indirect, they are known. The constitution of the party make it clear to the persons who will be delegates to the primaries. Okay. These delegates who spelled out, they are people that have the confidence of the people that they represent. Even in advanced democracies today, you are seeing the primaries in the United States.
Yeah.
Is there anywhere they are talking about direct primaries? Now, in the face of this COVID-19, which is just everywhere, we are talking about social distancing. Then some persons are saying you go and encourage the gathering of so many persons all over the world in Edo State without thinking of the after effects or the health challenges, unless we are saying that the COVID-19 pandemic is a horse, that the COVID-19 pandemic does not exist. Okay. But you and I know that when it comes to things like this, you must take the health considerations first, because it's like they say that self-preservation is the first law of nature. So if you are so bent on doing your primaries, you still have enough time to go around the delegates to talk to them as to why you want to be in a particular office.
All right, I'll pause you there because my time is up. Thank you so much for your views.
All right.
Thank you. Dr. Don Pedro, yeah. Yes. A last word from you, because yes, I know Felix out there.
You said, should I reply to all
Yes, yes, I want you to in 1 minute.
And you said that is my last word?
Yes, it's your last word.
No, I would rather not reply to him. No, it's not important. I would rather just say my last word.
Please go ahead.
Okay, my last word is this. For the great people of Edo State to move forward, we must put in place persons whose mental disposition puts our people forward. You can't move a people forward until you move their brain power upward.
Okay.
If at the end of the day, our national leadership is coming up with extenuating arguments that is out of situation, that does not meet the present global best practice, it means it is skewed, it means it is directed, it means it does not at any point show an umpire who is not biased. Don't forget, Mr. Adams Ochiomole, as national chairman, is going to be the whistleblower. Is he going to be the whistle holder? Is going to be the umpire in a fight that he is the principal interested party. There is no...
You are not fighting him.
No.
All right, my time is up, gentlemen. I want to say big thanks to you. Yes, last word, yes.
I think issue of direct primary is what the Latin man will call a res judicata. It's a settled matter. It has been decided by NWC.
It cannot be a res judicata.
I would advise Mr. Governor to go and mobilize the supporters for the election.
It is not a
the issue of indirect primary.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you for your time. It's still TMI Monday. We'll take a short break.